Okay.
Hey there, Beverly Hills 90210 fans.
You know how when they yell cut, they wouldn't stop?
That's interesting.
What?
Yes.
If you were Donna, what would you have said?
I said
A waitress rather call the police, and she was mistaken 90210 for cops.
Along with your host, Charles Rosin.
But look at that Dean cake. And Dan probably got the best performance he ever gave.
We're having a meeting here?
Oh, at least there's one person on this Fakata set that knows what they're doing.
Larry
I had a friend
Mullen.
named Craig Richland. There was still cocaine around and stuff. I always remembered him. I just kind of thought I would honor my coke dealer.
Get out of here!
Pete Ferriero.
Here's what I learned. It's possible Claire would have gone out with me.
that was your takeaway.
So sit back and relax because it's like totally time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Just hold on to me tonight.
Okay, here we are on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. And this is very exciting because we're being joined by Karen Rosin today. It's been a while since we've had you here on the podcast.
Hi.
Karen, how are you?
You know, I'm just getting over like 10 days of creeping crud, congestion, coughing, non-COVID something that I got from my grandchildren. So I'm just happy I'm here. And if I cough a little bit, you'll forgive me.
It's okay. The coughing's legal, cursing's legal. There's nothing. Everything is legal on
Larry,
this
do
podcast.
you know Brian?
I don't think we met, no.
Hi, how are you? Charles, I
I'm
don't see
doing
your
great, how are you?
head. I only see your face. There you go.
There
There's
you-
your chin.
Yeah, is that better?
Just
There we go.
a little bit.
There we go.
There's still a little face at the bottom of the screen.
Chuck, how's everything with you in the Venice area?
Well, we made real improvement on the house this last few days. Stopped raining, and we got ahead on that. So the leaky roof syndrome is, I think, stopped. So that's a good thing. And was on the beach today with the dogs, really briefly before the podcast, knowing that I'm going to look up tomorrow, and Larry's going to be in Martha's Vineyard for months. So
It's very challenging when we lose him. I mean, we see him every week, but
and imagine how it is for the dogs. We're right in front of his place when we go to the beach. So
how are your Dodgers doing? We're just vamping here for fans that are wondering what's going on. Jenny did text me; she is trying to log in, so I'm just waiting for that to happen.
okay, well, that's happened,
How are your Dodgers?
It's interesting. I don't know how to deal with them yet. They're so talented. They have so many weapons that it's like they don't really, they lose games. They're not
That's
beaten that often. They've lost maybe 2 games. Like today, they should have won this game. There's no reason not to. How do they leave 7 guys in scoring position when you have those guys who are your batters? To
me, that's the most frustrating thing about a baseball game when they load them up and then someone comes out and grounds out into that ending double play.
Or some variation of that theme. That's exactly right. So, or they get thrown out at home plate,
Exactly.
And can't then hit for a while. So, it's weird. I haven't adjusted, but they're very good. And Otani is fun. I'm learning to adjust to Shohei land very quickly. He gets on base. He hits the ball.
And Brian, Karen, Brian's from Reddit. He manages all the Reddit comments and whatnot. I'm going to run an ad and answer Jenny's question. I'll come back to you, Brian, in 1 second.
Hey, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. Check out the latest rad stuff from the Beverly Hills 90210 show shop. They have everything you could possibly imagine. So, go there now, okay?
It was a great ad, Pete. It was really
Thank
good.
you. I'm going to let Brian and Chuck talk about Reddit as I help Jenny with her problem.
Sure.
Well, Brian, why don't you so you go on Reddit and they say, and there are people, fans talk about things. What What was on today's menu, if anything at all?
Today's menu, people talking about Tori's new podcast. Some people love it, others don't. You know, little conflicts here and there over that.
No, and it's her own. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen her new podcast?
Or
heard about it? Oh, Karen, I think you're muted.
Well, I saw the ad for it. That's
There we go.
misspelling that new podcast, you mean, right?
Yeah, the misspelling podcast.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
excited.
I don't know. I saw a photo. It looked like it was for a dating app. I got confused.
Oh yeah, she's just
But
she's sitting and just kind of she's covering herself.
very
Right?
glamorous. Yes, she did. She was in a glam shot, and she's, hi, I'm in the glam shot. I have 5 children. There's a family attached here, and even if the husband is or the father is splitting up.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff about that on Reddit. A lot of people talking about the little odd tidbits that she discloses on the show.
Uh-huh.
You get to sit and
We'll
watch
take another quick commercial break, guys. Does that work? We'll take a quick break, and I'll have Jenny back on in 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm gonna play this.
Hey, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. Check out all the latest rap stuff from the Beverly Hills 90210 shop. We have everything you could possibly imagine. So, go there now, okay?
Do you see my plea? Help. Stop this. I can't hear that. Oh, the dogs are barking. There goes Pete.
He's gone. I guess they're having technical difficulties.
I think so. This is the bumpiest of ever.
I just want to shout out to the international fans and say, here I am, Planet 90210.
I love it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, when Karen and I were with fans when we were in London and Paris. In London,
we just had a quick trip
with Louise, who was from London, and then Anna. We went to dinner. I had lunch with, and then we went to dinner with Anna in Paris and had drinks with her last night too. Who was big, part of the international Planet Hollywood world. So, Planet 90210.
Kind of amazing to think. We could almost be, you could have a place to stay anywhere you go.
Well, Larry wanted to go on a world tour. He did want to do that. I think he was a little, especially with Anna, because they were really good buddies.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. It seems like every day I find out about another country, that you wouldn't really think would be big on the show. It's really fascinating.
The one that brought Mr. Spelling most pleasure.
I am so sorry. She is working on this, and she's going to come in through her phone. There was a technical difficulty getting Jenny O'Hara in here. So why don't we just start talking about the episode? So sorry to everybody who's sticking around saying, what the hell is going What is going on?
We used bumpy as the we just
Bumpy's an understatement, actually.
We apologize, everybody. It's
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
Yeah, all this will be deleted in the edit of the version that comes out on the audio. Everyone will be like, "Oh no, there was no problem. What had happened?" All right, Chuck, let's go back to the creation of this episode, because it is not normal. I shouldn't say normal, but it's a very difficult topic. We're talking about incest. What was it like to go to bring this up? I mean, you've talked about Jessica being a fighter in terms of like bringing some of this stuff out there. So
no, Jessica. The thing with Jessica is that nobody could talk as fast as Jessica Klein. When Jessica got wound up and she was telling you the story and she was talking, she would give a performance as she's telling the story. She's telling it well. She's there. There's no way that you can question anything going on, especially in this particular story, where right from the start, as we were developing the character Sue Scanlon, which is Scott's, the character who died in the gun accident's younger sister, and we realized, and I was remembering this, that one of my early pieces of journalism was about a stand-up comedian who had cerebral palsy. And what was the most interesting part of the whole deep dive into his character and his comedy was meeting his sister, and how the sister was kind of, it was all for the older brother and getting that through. She was in a secondary. So the idea about here's this death that we dealt with one quick episode and about, that we never really brought it up again. We never had a reason to. So to bring it back was a good indicator. And this was the deconstruction of it. So when Jessica pitched it to Mr. Spelling, anytime, especially in this particular episode, it wasn't Donna then goes over to the house for dinner. It was Tori went over to the house for dinner, and Tori does this, and Tori has the final scene with Luke,
right?
With Luke, with Dylan, and so I think he liked that because we were still developing her, her character at that point and giving her more screen time than she had in previous seasons. So that was a ploy here to get. And as I was just, Karen and I were just talking about it, he had no problem with it, and because he had no problem with it, neither did the network. There was no problem brought up about incest. So I thought there was going to be, but I think Karen handled it really. We did our bases, and she handled it really well.
The other thing that's going to be coming into this episode is the sister, Sue Scanlon. Do you remember creating that character? I guess Karen created Sue Scanlon. This is the first time we see her?
Oh, no.
No, they come up in the, because remember they have their senior buddies. Brenda
That's right.
has Sue.
That's right.
And,
so right from
Steve
being
has-
in the school, she was part of that. Yes, it was Steve in the computer. Karen, you're muted, baby. There you go.
There we go. A lot of
Yeah, so no, it was a whole arc. We go back to school and we use them as seniors, and so Steve had his with the computers, and this was, hers, Brenda
Right.
and Donna, and she really, I guess it was at a dance. We had a dance one night, and she was a little more, really flirt. Oh, Home and Away, the one where that we did with that she was very flirtatious with David.
Do you remember casting her?
Yes.
No, Nicole Tom?
Yes.
She was great. I mean, she was very, that was a very hard role, really. Very complicated.
And Karen, I found the scene that was cut between her and Mrs. Scanlon. I thought we'd wait till Jenny O'Hara joins us.
Okay,
to
good.
review it.
Hopefully.
It's kind of it's the scene that it was really good, but you didn't really need it given everything, all things being equal.
Yeah. So walk me through when we Doug Emerson's character was killed off. And typically in television, that's the end of the family. There would be no reason to see the family again. They just went into somewhere else in the box, in the TV box. But this is an opportunity where we get to see life after this tragedy at the school. So Karen, you wrote this episode, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we had both, Chuck and I had written the gun episode where Scott was killed. And we didn't, enumerate the children, but there's also the one of the earlier episodes. It was the one called "Isn't It Romantic," where Brenda and Dylan get together, their first romantic, the beginning of their romance in season 1. And in that, Scott is having a dilemma that he can't sign. His mother doesn't want to sign the paper allowing him to go to the sex ed assembly where someone's going to come and speak about AIDS. And so that was and then he's saying he doesn't want me to be influenced at school. And David says, well, how are you influenced at home? Your parents have 8 children or whatever, however many the number was. So they were like a large family. And we had certain attributes for them that had been set up prior to even Scott's death. And then now with other things happening with the sister. But Jenny O'Hara was a gem. I wish she was on here right now so I could say, well, she's here. She's a really, really technically wonderful professional actress who could do anything and walk into a drama with a given cast and fit right in as if she were one of them. She just really could have emerged as anything we asked her to do, basically. So I feel like her reactions were kind of in line with what we'd set up already, and of course she delivers. But Nicole Tom was also very important. And Bethany Rooney directed this episode.
I was going to bring that up. There's a thing that Nicole Tom has talked about, Chuck, that I'm curious about, that we've kind of talked about here a few times, that at some point Nicole Tom believes, as well as Dana Barron has said this, that they were all going to be a part of the next generation of Beverly Hills 90210. Dana Barron, Nicole Tom. This was in the time period, I think, when you were thinking of that Brian would not graduate with the rest of the class. Is that something that was a legitimate thing that was going to be happening, or just tossed around for a moment's notice?
Yeah, it was just a long toss around because it was just, it once Aaron, to cement the deal, required that they all graduate. It meant that we had to accelerate Brian. So whatever idea that we could have done and having, West Beverly High remain, or be, still be a high school show behind us, that show would still be running. We'd be Degrassi. I mean, there was a lot you could have done just keeping it a high school show. You just would have started to.
Aaron would have liked to keep it a high school show with these same people. He would have liked to keep
and that was the problem. But there was more high school, clearly more high school to do. And I even thinking of this episode from a style side of it. I mean, the B story. Brandon doesn't want to dance. So you got a nice girlfriend. What's the matter with you? Why won't you dance? That really is a lightweight. That's Saved by the Bell could have that as their main storyline, right? It's just, yes. I mean, it's lightweight high school, which we definitely was the perfect balance to a story that was going to be about sexual harassment by a teacher. And it's interesting with the character when Andrea gets involved in this episode, and mostly she's just the snitch and causing trouble in this episode a little bit, but the one thing that is true is that we did have her with the teacher back in the day when we did the summer episodes with that guy, Mr. Suter.
There's always been sort of this odd, I don't know if it's odd, but there's this chemistry with Andrea and Gil Myers to begin with. And so she's very judgmental. She's going to constantly be in her head about.
He also came in. It was a weird thing because she was the former editor, he wanted to shake it up. He wanted to give it to Brandon. He liked guys. He was a little bit of a sexist in that regard. And she had to kind of adjust to that personality because whoever was running the paper prior I mean, we knew that guy, but he had no real influence on them in
Oh, right,
individual.
yeah.
We weren't letting that character penetrate their lives in the same way that Gil Myers was. And did.
Absolutely. And there's some great stuff you alluded to or mentioned that Andrea is sort of observing Gil Myers. She's observing the troubled Sue Scanlon in some of the conversations that he's having with her. This stuff is really well written, Karen. It's really, really great stuff. And I love how Andrea is suspicious, looking out for the girl, for Sue. Talk to me about writing some of this.
Well, it's always hard when you're trying to, you want your hero characters to stay your hero characters. So we don't want her to do a terrible, unveiling of this thing, but we want her to treat us like we would want to be treated if we were Gil Myers. We want her to be we want her to prevent harm if that's what's happening, but not cause harm if that's what's not happening. So that, so there's always that balance with it. But,
well, the other thing I took out of it, thinking about it, is that there was, the Gil Myers had this backstory. This a student who did, commit suicide, who was depressed, who thought it was love, and he had to rebuild from that. And so this, summons that up again. And it is something that, that I learned doing this show, is that, yes, you've got backstories for these characters. Use them. I mean, here was the backstory for Uncle Ernie. And, the one thing that I liked about this, I was telling Karen that what I really liked seeing this all put together in the way that we just did was that, especially that last scene at the dinner table, how so much of it was unsaid. You weren't talking about the issue. You did have afterwards the scene with Donna and Sue, but you knew what the subject was going to be because of that table. And that was, and things weren't said there. And it was very, and I like that, and television was always very much in the kind of television we were making, was you yak, you're in the position, you know where you are, don't get lost, here you are. But this was different. I liked it.
I was going to say that this could have been a 2-hour special, movie.
It should have been. And I was thinking that. Yeah.
It's that is a lot of times the challenge whenever you're doing a serious subject or complicated subject in an hour show, especially when you have a B and a C story too, which we did have, which is all Chuck's doing, that organizing of how to structure those little connecting dots with Dylan and getting sick and the Heal the Bay, the voting, and he got in the birthday, it weaves it through. And I did feel like, because of the time limitation, in watching it now, I thought we're explaining things that happened off camera, and we had to do that because we just couldn't have, really, because so much more could have been done. You could easily have been a 2 hours. So it would have been, more of a confrontation with the young.
But it would have been, you know what? And I'm looking at this scene again, that scene up, like what happened at school today. And you really drill down until it's a very emotional scene. And, and did you really need to know that? Or was the element of surprise, preferable? And also, one moves the story, other takes screen time. So let's move the story. Especially
but I like the way we did the unknown result of what had happened in the room with Gil and the girl, with the
yes.
Well, yes. Like that wasn't seen, but there might have been and I also liked a lot where Andrea is making friends with her or getting her to trust her by sharing that she had a similar experience, and she was so kind about it. And it's sort of like, I'm surprised I didn't remember what kind of research I did for that, but obviously you'd have to do that, a gentle approach, right? And something of that kind to do it, and maybe modeling a little bit how to treat someone who, is in a situation, is troubled, is having a problem, and you want them to open up to you. And so you have to become vulnerable with them as well. That little moment where she says, what I tell you is not going to be told, and what you tell me, same. I kind of really like that looking back on that, because that is kind of like the basis of trust in a therapy situation, for example, or any kind of a thing where people do have to get vulnerable and reveal things. Yeah.
A couple things here. Catherine West says, I just saw the Barbie episode again. Karen nailed it.
Some people know it.
Some people are saying, Lindy says it's nice to see Karen again.
Aww.
Tammy says, hi, Karen. Always nice to see you on the show. Brenda, who's not Brenda Walsh, says, woohoo, Karen. Do you think Brenda Walsh would say woohoo, Karen?
Maybe Brenda would have. Maybe not sure.
I sent Brian to hopefully get Jenny O'Hara figured out.
That would be nice if it happened. But it would have been Brenda in seasons 1 and 2. That's the Brenda that we knew best.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, while we're hoping that he tries to get her tech figured out. Let's talk about that storyline that you mentioned. Dana Barron, Nikki Witt is trying to get Brandon to dance. I want to ask about this stance that Brandon has about not dancing. Where did this? Is this a Jason thing? Is this just something that you guys?
Absolutely. And it wasn't there in the beginning. If you look at the first 12 episodes, there was one. I think it's BYOB when they're up in the hills when he cracks the car. Now that was the 2-hour episode or the 2-parter. That's the one, because the difference between that one and this one, we built a character arc around the little sister that culminates with an understanding that incest was the driving factor. But she's a guest star, and the mother's a guest star. The other is Brandon Walsh cracks the car, and it's Brandon and Jim. It's the car. It's you know.
You're saying if the incest was happening to one of the main characters, you could have explored this way longer in an episode. But because everybody's a guest star, what are we going to do? Another hour?
Our series was always, right from the start, once we became a hit, everybody was teasing us about incest. Like, why don't we do a storyline with Brian, Brandon, and Brenda, a couple? We had a lot of that, in this. And so they even teased it, those guys would, should they have gone on a date? What if they got attracted to each other? I think, didn't something like that happen in One Tree Hill where they became
that might have been the thing. Yes. So Jason did not want to dance. Now there's an episode. I have a theory.
Well, I do. I think I know where it was. There was the episode we did, East Side Story, where we did a really elaborate dance. The original writer of that, who was replaced on it, and I actually shared credit with that writer. That writer had a really elaborate dance number, and we kept that in. But we had professional dancers, and they all were doing great. And then he's got to dance, and he's dancing like Bad Surfer Stomp, and Jason didn't like it at all. And just said,
I didn't like it either.
Don't make me dance again, Charles. And that was.
He had to learn choreography. He learned choreography. Like it wasn't just dancing. It was steps. It was salsa. It was like a flavor to it. He looked awkward doing it. So I figured that's where it all stemmed from. But anyway, in this episode, he's got this beautiful girlfriend, Dana Barron, who is just so stunning and so cute and so fun on this show. And sort of fits in because she doesn't fit in, right? She's sort of that person, Nikki Witt, and she wants him to dance, and Brandon won't do it. Was there any thought of like he has to shake and move a little bit? He does in the room privately with her.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about Jason is he really was. In the first year, he was just saying, I don't want to dance. Don't make me dance. Don't. And then he upped it each year. He upped it. I really don't want to do it. Really. So it was always a standing kind of a joke. But I sort of
I saw him
dance though in real life. I believe. I think.
When you went to a wedding, but if you went to someone's wedding, was he dancing?
I think so. He might
We had a-
tell me no. He might tell
We
me
had a
no.
fun, you know what? You know where I think I saw him dancing was that Christmas. Remember that Christmas party we had in Universal where where Gabby and the cast gave away the car? Karen, when we did the karaoke, I got in trouble for the karaoke.
Yes.
So he was dancing at that party.
He was dancing at that party, I think. I can remember, maybe.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I see him dancing. I can't place it. I'm going to have to think about this now. But
maybe it was Gabby's wedding.
I was thinking his own wedding, not the current.
Oh, the other one? Oh, the one that we went in the Buffalo Club. Yeah. The first wedding.
Simon says, I really didn't like how Nikki treated Brandon. The man doesn't like to dance, so watch. She pretty much terrorized him. She always did stuff like that on the show. I don't know if it was terrorizing.
She was giving him a hard time, but it just
trying to get him a little jealous a little bit. She with the bumping and the grinding. She was good. She would get down on the ground.
The Blue Lobster says, I was in 5th grade when The Next 50 Years aired. It was all my circle of friends were talking about that week. Had a powerful effect on us thanks to these incredibly talented writers.
That was the gun episode.
Thank you, Blue Lobster.
Yes.
First 50 years. Yeah,
we still don't have Jenny O'Hara. Should we start talking about Jenny O'Hara things? I think at this point we have got to get into that. Well, what about Dylan being sick?
Well, we face that constantly. I get little alerts on my phone. Quiet. That tell me ocean water use warnings because we live in Venice now, and they tell us all the time which beach is safe to swim in, and it is a constant here. We have beautiful, beautiful beaches that sometimes you should not step foot in, and the surfers do get a lot of stuff.
And while we were making the show, 90-91, that was the start of Heal the Bay with a woman named Dorothy Green, who actually used our set, our Beverly Hills Beach Club set, for their first fundraiser. And I couldn't get anybody in the cast to come on a Saturday night to do that, to support Heal the Bay. It was brand new. Jamie Lee Curtis did it instead, but nobody from our cast. That was, no embarrassing. But nonetheless, so they had just started out because Santa Monica Bay, which is where I grew up in the water, and most LA kids spent their summers in the Santa Monica Bay at the beaches in Santa Monica. That was in the late 60s. By the mid 70s, they were all polluted. So This was now the 90s, and are we going to do anything about it? And Malibu was still reasonably clean because it was farther north, but Santa Monica Bay was not great. And so this was the beginning of that kind of connection that you get sick. If you're in the water all the time, you're going to get sick. Why does it have to be this way? And that the idea that the character of Dylan being an activist, it got him a little bit out of his, he's just a sad rich kid with a troubled father, which is where we were certainly going to be going with the storyline with Jack McKay. And as we move down season 3.
I don't break the fourth wall on this podcast, but I'm going to do this. Do you guys want to exit here, make it easier for Jenny O'Hara, and do a Zoom? We'll stop the podcast as it is here. I can edit all this out in post later. We'll just give her a Zoom link, and then we'll all be able to chat, and I can stream this live on YouTube via that. Does that work for you guys?
Sure.
Whatever you want to do, Pete.
I think that makes the most sense so that we can incorporate her into the conversation rather than her.
Wow.
Spiraling.
She goes in the pantheon of. She's up there now with. She actually beats Carol Potter, beats Dana Barron.
Yes.
Dina Barron was the other one that couldn't get her.
This is at a level of that I can't even imagine, but I do feel we will get her on here. Everybody who's watching, just stay on the YouTube channel, BeverlyHills90210show.com, and we will link up with a Zoom link, and I think that will be easier for everybody. I think we should try to do this.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. We'll be right back.
Blue Lobster.